Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Everyday EDC. My name is Tyler, and today we are doing a knife review on the CJRB Mangrove. That's my little son in the background. Not putting his name or anything out there, but if you hear him or the dogs, I will apologize in advance for the sounds that they make, but I will not apologize for any one of them because they are part of my family and they are family members. Never apologize for your family members, but you can apologize for the sounds that they make. Made that up on the spot and probably doesn't make any sense. So, if you guys watched my previously posted video on, it is labeled Everyday EDC Life Failures Episode 1. It gives a little bit about this knife and how this knife bit my hand last night very violently and totally uncalled for because I was doing everything right, safe, and sound, and it still decided to get me. If you watch my video, you know that's all bullshit. Oh, rewind real quick. Putting that disclaimer in there. I'm starting to do this on the videos because I don't want to be rude to people not paying attention. If you are watching this and you are offended by lots of profanity or accidental slurs is the wrong word, but just know that I mean nothing in malice. I have no discrimination or anything like that, but I will be using a lot of profanity, and it's just the way I talk. It's the way that I get my point across. And I enjoy talking with my hands, using profanity, as you can probably tell by the way the camera shakes when I do it. So, it's not that I enjoy it, it's just part of how I talk. So, that's who I am, that's what I'm doing, that's my reviews. If you don't like it, no offense, but please find somebody else to watch, because this is not, this is the way I'm doing my channel. So, moving on. The fucking Mangrove. Obnoxious. Too much. So, the Mangrove, by CJRB. Bit my hand last night. Moving on. I unboxed this knife, and I got hyped up because I heard somewhere along the way that this knife was supposed to be awesome. Like CJR, everybody was excited about this knife. And then, another guy that watches the channel quite a bit, Justin, he was excited about it too. So I was like, you know what, dude, I'm going to get my hands on it. And I opened it up, and I hated this knife out of the box. The scales, they got this weird texturing to them, almost looks like somebody took a rock and tried to carve texturing into the G10 that's on here. The blade shape is different than what you're used to. It's a deep carry pocket clip that still sticks out of your pants by about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. It's heavy. It's, and you're like, dude, I don't like anything about this knife. So I started using it, and I started carrying it, and I think one day I was chopping up a zucchini or something. We found a bunch of zucchini out in the park, so we took it. And it wasn't anybody's. It was somebody left it after a party. But probably drugged. So I was cutting it up, and even the blade shape, when you're cutting things, you would think this would be kind of like a good food prep style blade. It's really not. It's so fat back here that everything's splitting. You don't get good slices on it. So that's my initial impressions, right? I'm using it. I'm trying to review it, carry it with me so I can review it, and it ends up to the point where I don't like the knife, and I actually set it down, and I was like, I'm going to do a review on this thing. I don't fucking like it. I'm going to try to keep my bias out of it. But I picked it back up for 2 more days, and I was like, let's do its due diligence, try to give it another chance, see where we're at. Yesterday I was carrying it. I used it as a pry bar because I don't like the knife, and, you don't use knives that you like as pry bars. Well, that's why I use this one as a pry bar. And it got me. So in that moment, there was something about a spiritual connection with this motherfucker that it literally sliced the shit out of me. This fat part probably went into my hand about 1/8 of an inch. Doesn't sound like much, but when your hands are only about 1 inch thick, 1/8 of an inch is quite a bit of your skin. And I remember watching the cut, and your first action's like, god damn it. But then your second action, I looked at it, I had paper towel, and I put it over the top, and I'm looking, and I connected with the knife the moment it all happened. I felt like I actually liked this knife when it cut me, which makes no fucking sense. Nobody's going to be able to really understand what I'm saying. It's just I'm trying to convey that, via video. That's my kid, not my dogs growling in the background, by the way. Absolutely hilarious. So, now that you know that the bias has swayed and I am not anti-Mangrove anymore, let's get into the review. Has a blade stock thickness of 0.12, 120 thousandths. Has a behind the edge thickness. This was supposed to be... No. A behind the edge thickness of about 20 thousandths, probably a little bit closer to 24 thousandths. It's not super thin behind the edge. This is not a slicey knife. Well, it's not a laser beam like some of the other knives. We can do the handle thickness, which I don't really do that often, but handle thickness, relatively thick. It's coming in at about 55, a little over half an inch thick, which most knives are about a half an inch. I've seen most of them fall at the 52 range. This is coming at like a 57, 58. Not a huge deal. Let's do overall length. We're not using our stupid long friggin' or stupid fat tape measure anymore. This thing is 8 1/4 inches long with a blade length of just about 3 1/2 inches and a cutting edge of about 3 1/4. Do the weight. All right, I don't know how well you guys can see that, so I apologize. Well, you can see it just fine, kind of. 4.89 ounces. So like I said, it's for the range of knives that we're doing, like these everyday, you know, the modern day knives. 4.89 ounces is kind of heavy for a modern day knife, right? When you're talking Civivi, CJRB type of stuff. I mean, it doesn't feel obnoxiously heavy, but when I pulled it out of the package, I was like, I expected this to be. You see it online, and for some reason, it looks like a sleek knife. It is not. This is not a sleek knife. So 4.89 ounces. Let's get on to some comparisons, and then I will give my overall thoughts on the knife. So, first, we're going up against the Rat Model 1 and the typical, my typical, ProTech Rat Sandwich. Once again, I can't wait to, I'm working on getting an overhead view because this is so not indicative of how big these knives are. When you're looking at it from the angle, which I can see right now, looking at it through my camera, relax. You see those, it's almost the same size as the Rat Model 1. Kid's getting a little antsy. We might have to cut this video. Speed it up. Speed it up. He's saying you guys are taking too long. You're talking some bullshit. There's the feldspar and the mini feldspar. Obviously coming in bigger than the mini feldspar, but the overall length is almost exactly that of the feldspar. Just for shits and gigs, because we got the feldspar out here. I forgot the weight on this guy. So 4.15. So the Mangrove is almost 3/4 of an ounce heavier. Getting into the Civivi Backlash, coming in about the same length as the Mangrove, and then the Civivi Dose. Okay. All right. And then last but not least, we have our Spyderco Paramilitary 2, which is about, once again, and I'm saying this from the side. I want to give the overhead view. Even though it looks like this, I want you guys to kind of know exactly what I'm looking at. This is about the same length as the Paramilitary 2. And then here is the CJRB Rio. So I'm going to go through some of the specs. Not specs, I've already gone through the specs. I'm going to go through looking at all the different items on this knife, and then we'll kind of get to a little bit of history on the Nessmuck. I had to do some research on this because I didn't know what this blade shape technically was. So, gave it away. The blade shape's called a Nessmuck. This is D2 steel. Deep carry pocket clip that sticks out about about 1/4 of an inch to an inch out of your pocket. It's a little bit heavier of a knife. The scales are freaking weird. It's almost like you took this off a tree and then tried to texture it with a rock. That's the best. It's a stick textured with a rock. That's what it reminds me of. It has an ambidextrous pocket clip. You can carry it on both sides, but the liner lock is a right hand, so that sucks for you, whoever it is. It has a pivot with the pivot collar. That's, you know, typical CJRB. But the pivot has screw holes on both sides, and I can tell you that even though they are D-shaped pivots, what I'm not understanding for this couple CJRBs that I've taken apart is that they almost still free spin in place. I've had to use 2 screws or 2 Torx heads to get these apart, and that's not for everyone. I'm not speaking for everyone, but just from my experience in taking this apart, even though it's a D-shaped pivot, it still spins, and that confuses me. It came in, the blade has been relatively centered when it came in. The action on it's decent. The blade is heavy, so it has this pseudo action feel where it feels like it's moving pretty well. The detent does feel a little weak. It's not the most fidgety of knives, but because of the blade, you know, you can sit there and do this all day. And because of the weak detent and the smooth flipper, where there's no jimping and it's knocked down good enough to where it's not going to pull at your finger, that's good. The ergos on this, I will give it credit. The ergos on this thing are pretty sick. It's got this awesome thumb ramp going on right here. Well, I'm going to call it a thumb ramp. It might not be a thumb ramp. You can choke up. And ever since I became a knife, quote-unquote, enthusiast in the making, I've been addicted to this choke-up position and the way it feels. And this one really does take the cake. This feels good. Probably the best CJRB I've felt as far as ergo-wise so far, that I've reviewed anyways. I did review the Tala, and the Tala is similar, but I did have to knock down this part on the Tala with my Dremel because it felt like it was trying to grip my finger as opposed to just let my finger rest on there. As you can see, I can get all 4 fingers on this with a little bit extra. I got skinny fingers, long fingers, but they're, you know, I got large to extra large size glove hands. Compensating for something. Made in China, CJRB. It's got a little bit of billboarding here. D2 steel, and it's got serial number J1910, and then CJRB on the other side. It's got a satin finish blade with a flat grind. This flat grind goes up about 3/4 of the way, and the flat carries out about 3/4 of the way down the blade, which you can't see from that fucking angle. And then it's got this nice little swedge going on here. So I'm going to end this with a little bit of history. This knife, well, hold on. The pivot's T8. All the other screws are T6, unfortunately. And I might be fucking lying. You God damn it. Hold on. I came unprepared. I apologize, guys. So, yep. Pivot, T8. The rest of the screws, T6. Okay. Back to it. So this blade shape is called a Nesmuk. I couldn't find much on there because it refers you to blade forums and people are just talking back and forth. People are saying, oh, this is where I saw it, this is where it came from, blah, 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 and you kind of just take the forums for what you will. What I did find is there's a guy named... Shit. What was his name? There's a guy named George W. Sears, and hopefully I can fix this video. I just chopped it in half looking that up. George W. Sears was a major bushcrafting guy. He was a guy that, back in like the early 1800s, I believe, kind of wrote the book on bushcrafting. Now, what is bushcrafting? I don't fucking know what bushcrafting is. I'm assuming it's the art of camping and living in the woods. And he basically wrote a book on it that's still out there today. Well, his nickname was Nesmuk. And he valued 3 things when he was out in the camping area. He valued an axe, a regular, like, buck-style knife with 2 different blades, and then he had a fixed blade with this Nesmuk-style blade on it. Now, the idea behind this, because this blade is so thick and a little bit heavier on the end, is it feels like something that I want to chop with. Almost like an axe because of the weight behind here. It feels like you want to bop, bop, right? Because you got that weight. I don't think it's supposed to be super thin, but you have no point really on the end of the blade, so it's not going to be as dainty as some of the other knives, and you get a lot more belly with what you're doing. I think this actually should be, if it was a little bit thinner for me in a folding knife, I actually would like it quite a bit. What I don't like about it is that the traits of this knife remind me of something that should be in a fixed blade. I mean, I feel like this is a cool attempt at making a Nesmuk design, but even though this blade feels heavy and it's a big knife, I think it needs to be bigger for this blade shape. I could be way off base. People may disagree with me. It is what it is, but this feels to me like this should be a bigger hand or a bigger knife. with a fixed blade. So you can do a little bit more heavier duty work, which is what I think this is really designed for, especially in a campsite. And I already forgot the guy's name, so please go back and look him up. You can find, his nickname was Nessmuk, Nessmuk, and that's the name of this blade shape. You know, not much. I think the guy was 5'3" and like 103 pounds, and just really wanted to prove to society that he can make it out there on his own, and basically wrote the book on making it on your own in the wilderness. So, fun little fact. That's really all I got, guys. If anybody has any questions on this knife that I did not hit, because once again, I free flow when I'm doing this, and I don't really have a rhyme, reason, or anything to what I do. So, and then I just jacked up my video by shutting it off and putting it back on. But yeah, this has been Everyday EDC. My name is Tyler. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay sharp, stay safe. You know, wear your fucking masks and be respectful to one another. If you see an old lady standing in line, stand 6 feet away. Just do the right thing. And other than that, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching and allowing me to at least justify me doing this. Have a great day.